Join me today as I replace a clutch and flywheel on a Nissan 240sx. We recently had the engine out of Hertz Simple Seat Time Stallion, his new S13. While it was out, we decided to change the clutch and flywheel. Luckily for Hert, I happen to have a competition clutch White Bunny setup that I could put into his car. In the comments, I saw a few people request some basic 240sx maintenance procedures, and if you pick up drifting, this is something you're probably going to have to do. With all the old stuff removed, it's time to put the flywheel on. You'll use a 19mm socket and driver to put the flywheel on. Use a 27mm socket and breaker bar to hold the crank pulley in place. Since I was doing this myself, I wedged mine underneath the engine hoist. Tighten the 6 bolts in sequence and set your torque wrench to 105 to 112 pound-feet of torque. I then cleaned the flywheel with some brake cleaner before installing the clutch. Use the plastic clutch alignment tool to center the clutch disc and pressure plate. Just as a note, you would normally replace the pilot bearing on a new clutch and flywheel install. Tighten the 6 bolts on the pressure plate in sequence because this will slowly flex the pressure plate diaphragm. Use a torque wrench and set the final torque to 16 to 22 pound-feet of torque. Once your bolts are torqued down, remove the clutch alignment tool. On the transmission, most clutch and flywheel kits will come with a new throwout bearing. Remove the retaining clip and take off the old throwout bearing. I used a shop press to remove the old bearing and press on a new one. If you don't have access to a shop press, I've also put one on before using a 2x4, a hammer, or a vise and sockets. A quick Google search will come up with some alternatives for you, but I would suggest doing it the right way and using a press. Be sure to apply some fresh grease to lubricate the throwout bearing and the pilot bearing. With the new throwout bearing installed and the retainer clip back on, it's time to reinstall the transmission. Except I ran into an issue. Hertz transmission and the new engine both had dowel pins in them for alignment, so I needed to remove one of them in order to get the two to go together. So I used a grinder to make a slot into the transmission dowel pin and then pulled it out with a flathead screwdriver just far enough to use vice grips to yank it out. The most difficult part about reinstalling the transmission is lining up the input shaft and then wiggling the transmission to align the splines. If you have a friend to help you here, it's very handy. But once you get the input shaft in, you can kind of wiggle the transmission to align the splines, and it should start to slowly come together. Once you've wiggled it back into place, use the 17mm bolts to resecure the engine to the transmission, and then torque to spec. I hope you found this video helpful, and hopefully it gives you some encouragement to try your first flywheel and clutch install. If you have flywheel or clutch install tips or stories, post them below. I'd like to hear them. Thanks for watching.